Contested Role is the segment where we take a high-stakes, hot-button issue, not really a super frivolous, low-stakes, it doesn't matter, issue, and we debate. In the past, we've done metal dice versus plastic dice. We've done theater of the mind versus battle sets. We have some prompts here if you would like one.
Okay. Aren't we both like competitive debaters?
Yes, I believe so. Yes, shit. But the benefit here, because you are our guest, is you will pick your position first, and no matter
you have to take the opposite.
I will take the opposite, no matter what it is.
I'm against child soldiers. Get fucked, Brennan Lee Mulligan. I win.
Right. So I guess we will want to narrow that down to anywhere near TTRPGs that you can get.
I'm against child soldiers in D&D.
Wait, I think our whole first season is about high schoolers conscripted into adventuring. So actually, my position's pretty clear.
Give them a magic missile and throw them onto the battlefield.
Here you go, children.
What are these prompts?
Okay, prompts we have like 3E versus 5E. One of these prompts just says sandwiches. We also have, where did the other, there were more. I'm not sure where that page, there was a page that had more, but it's gone now. I'm trying to think of what some of the other ones were. There was like West March's campaign versus traditional campaign, sort of longer versus shorter. Or we can get nitty-gritty, like 3E versus different editions of the game. There's also...
I've got one.
Sure, go for it.
I don't think Min-Maxers are bad.
You don't think Min-Maxers are bad?
No. At the end of the day, D&D is a board game, and if people want to use the mechanics to their benefit, I really don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think especially because I think there's a table for everyone. I think there are some people that want to play and say, I take out my axe, I flourish it over my shoulder, I look him in the eyes, and I say, this one's for Sissy, and I swing. 13, okay. I do 4 points of slashing damage. And then there's 13, okay, I'm gonna hit him with my axe for 4 points of damage, and then I get to add a 3 to that, that's another 3, and then, okay, that's my turn. Actually, I'm gonna hold my reaction and do this. And I don't think either one is wrong. I think some people play it like, more, and maybe you might even have a mix of players at the same table, and that's fine. But I feel like when I go on Twitter and stuff, there's a lot of threads that are like, I have a min-maxer at my table. How do I deal with them? And I'm like, why do you have to deal with them? What's wrong about having a min-maxer at your table? Oh no, they read the rules and they're using them. How horrible that they are following the exact same handbook that the rest of us are reading, and that they took the time to learn the rules enough to be able to use them to their advantage. What a horrible person. We should hang them, clearly.
Well, so I'll take the opposite position. Good luck.
Okay.
Dungeons and Dragons, you said is a board game. Is D&D a board game, or is it a storytelling medium? Does a zebra have white stripes? Is a zebra black with white stripes or white with black stripes? Well, I'll tell you this conclusively: zebras are white with black stripes, and because their tummies are white, and you can see that that's the case. And I would say definitively, Dungeons and Dragons is not a game. It is a storytelling medium that has a game kind of stitched to the side of it.
Actually, it started out as a war game.
Yeah, and we started out as algae. And now,
did we though?
Did we? Yes. Pro-evolution here on the Adventuring Academy.
I'm not. I think I came from a rib.
You heard it here first, Jess.
And you can't prove to me that I didn't.
This would be a great contested role, intelligent design versus evolution. You'll be like, I'm not sure I remember what this show's about.
That's the only thing I know about the Bible. I've debated doing a series where I blind react to the Bible because I'm sick, because I don't know much about it. It's like fanfic to me. I find it very interesting.
The idea of doing a like very YouTube style like
a blind react, like that bronze girl reacts too, and I just start reading it and tell people what I think.
Lot's wife turned into a pillar of salt by the Lord. Slide whistle.
But here's a question though, to get back to the point.
Yes.
You are positing it as though a min-maxer couldn't role play. Now, did you or did you not play a min-maxed character yourself on Battle for Beyond, and yet your role play was not found lacking? Now, how would you have felt if someone had said Nicole was broken because you chose to multi-class that paladin fucker with a warlock, which everyone knows is a pretty broken multi-class? Now, I didn't hold it against you because I said this man understood the mechanics of the game and is using it to met out as much damage as possible. And if a boss dies in 3 rounds instead of 5, how does that really affect the story? So my question to you is, why do you, as someone who has successfully min-maxed and successfully role-played, believe that the two are mutually exclusive, which is also what Twitter posits, which I just do not find to be true. Now, if you're going to say that maybe that player is not describing their combat in 30-second flourishy things, you did that too. But even if you didn't, is that really where the role play happens? I think the answer is it depends on the table. Some people role play in combat, some people choose outside of combat to role play, and I don't think that the two are separate.
I lost.
Is that I didn't know there was a winner.
No, you win, I lose.
Oh. Okay. I feel bad now.
No.
I don't. I fucking loved it.
Yeah, no, that's just, well, the reason that you've noticed hypocrisy there is that I didn't believe what I was saying.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's not really, yeah.
No, I think that's absolutely true. I think that the idea, like, min-maxing is such an, right, like, even that term is so bizarre, right? It means like, it's like min-maxing comes from like what? Like dump statting, right? It's like the idea.
I think it's like minimizing your drawbacks and maximizing your damage or your advantages.
Right. It's such a bizarre thing to have a problem with. Well, like I guess it's like, again, different strokes for different folks, whatever's going on at your table. But there seems to be something very funny. Here's the thing that just in this moment I've kind of realized bothers me around the min-maxer discourse, right? Because people will say like, oh, I have a problem with min-maxers. And as you've said, it's a total crapshoot whether a min-maxer role plays or doesn't role. Like if your problem is there's someone at your table who's not role playing, address that, like diagnose that. If it's like not a good table fit, right? And even then, it's like you wouldn't judge someone for not wanting to role play. It's just maybe it's not a great table fit. Maybe people want different things out of this game, right? But aside from that, okay, you've let's say, so separate out that role playing is different. You're just looking at min-maxing, and you're saying like that's a problem, right? And so often the refrain that you see is people being like, I play this game for the role playing or the narrative or the storytelling or whatever, and going like, so this person min-maxing is like not seeing the, they're not seeing like why I play. But I would push back on that and say like, well, what about a person having an optimized character is preventing you from role playing? And often the answer, I feel like, that's sort of waiting in the wings is like, well, it's about balance. Like this character has, hit this power differential where they're solving problems, where they're like, oh, they're overly sort of doing well in combat. And then I think the thing I come back to on that is like, well, so it's not the role playing that matters to you, it's the combat.
Right.
And if the combat matters to you, get good.
Exactly.
Right? Like, if that is in other words, if that element of it, like.
And even without min-maxing, some classes shine more in combat than others.
Yeah.
And that's just a fact. I don't think people play D&D for a balanced game. If you wanted to play a balanced game, you would play Warhammer.
Well, honestly, the edition of D&D that was the most balanced was 4E, and one of the biggest complaints about it was how they balanced it.
Yeah, because you have to take out a lot of flavor.
Right.
When you start balancing things. You have to start removing cute little, kind of like this happened with World of Warcraft. When you start removing quirky little abilities that a class has because you need to replace them with abilities that are only useful in combat and not useful outside of that.
You end up in a situation where you've created something that's like very flavorless. So I agree. I don't think balance is the most significant. I think that like, but again, I think it's a very interesting thing because in terms of the complaints about like, overpowered characters, I do think that it comes back to like, it's really hard to have a problem with an overpowered character from a role-playing perspective that doesn't somehow come back around to being about a mechanics issue at root. So it's like, okay, your issue is mechanical, in which case maybe there's a mechanical way to address that. Either in like homebrewing something that needs to be nerfed. But I think acknowledging that like, paladins are great, bards are great. These are classes that are really powerful within 5th edition D&D. Every system is going to have something that's like over or underpowered, right?
Yeah.
And I think but I think understanding those mechanics and how you use them to tell a story are very significant. I think the only thing I would take my hat off to would be every table has to acknowledge mechanical realities, regardless of if you're a combat-focused or a story-focused character. Like, in other words, if you have a min-maxed character and you're trying to role-play them like, I don't know what I'm doing, and they wipe everybody out. At a certain, that was a funny moment with Nikhil, right?
Yeah.
When there was a moment where he hadn't been allowed to compete in the tournament for a while, and he came back, and someone tried to be like, there goes little Nikhil with his, and he's like, how much ass do I have to kick out here before I start getting some fucking respect?
Yeah.
So there's an interesting, in a long campaign, where I think you do have to contend with mechanical realities being like, no, that character, or like, that character that you think of as being weak keeps mopping the floor with people, or conversely, a character that is seen as being competent can't stop beefing it. And that, I understand, that can be a painful thing if you have a character that you want to be seen as being competent, but for whatever reason, you have struggled to mechanically get them to that place, or like the dice have not been in your favor, that can create cognitive dissonance that's like truly not fun to like play through.
Yeah.
But I think the answers there are usually like to either like talk with your table about like the game. Like, in other words, it's like, oh, I want my character to be competent, but they're like, I didn't like get a build for them that like made them competent, that's frustrating me. I think it's either like, well, you either have to address that narratively, in which case, like, can you find a way that playing through that arc is fun or enjoyable, or, crack them books.
I love that you said get good, because like, I feel like DMs especially who have difficulty with min-max players, I find it's not usually like that the player themselves is not fun to play with. It's like they can't figure out how to design a boss encounter that is a challenge to that player.
Which is like...
To which I say...
Get good.
Get
Good. Only because, and again, if you're a dungeon master, you have every advantage in the world.
Yes.
You can homebrew.
Yes.
You can homebrew, you can make monsters, you can design encounters. You can create, like, if an encounter starts going and it's like they're mopping the floor with your enemies, oh no, the enemy laid a bunch of eggs and now there's more enemies.
Right.
Like, you can kind of, in terms of balance and stuff like that as a DM, you just have so many cards up your sleeve that, like, blaming it on a player feels, like you're saying, I think there's something a little bit like, hey, like, yeah, you might have a powerful player, but like, now they're powerful. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, give them other unique challenges, and find ways to. I remember like there was a conversation on whether or not it was evil to counterspell healing spells, and I was like, I would 100% counterspell your fucking healing spells.
If you have,
do you think my villains would take pity? Do you think my villains would be like, oh, I'm sorry, I'll counterspell your fireball? But your cure wounds, I would never count. No.
Yeah, I'm counterspelling it.
Vecna would 100% counterspell your healing spells.
Especially would it counterspell a revivify. Good
right?
Lord.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
I'm not letting you get back up.
No.
It's so hard to get you down in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure you stay dead.
You gotta stay dead. Well, that's been Contested Role. Jasmine Bhullar absolutely mopped the floor with me.